The celestial dawn drifted silently above Lyra V, its hull scarred by cosmic storms and battle. Red warning lights pulsed along the bridge as alarms echoed through empty corridors. The Empire's finest engineers had tried for days, yet the ship refused to respond. 28 of them had risked their lives, worked around the clock, and failed. The fleet's survival, and the lives of thousands, hung by a fragile thread. Ethan Cale, a human, stepped onto the observation deck. He had never imagined being called back into service. Years ago, he had left the fleet to raise his daughter Mara in peace. Now the Empress herself had summoned him. She was waiting, seated on her throne in the command chamber, radiating cold authority. Her eyes scanned him like a weapon assessment. "If you're so good, fix my ship," she said. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the hum of alarms. Ethan swallowed, his jaw tight. The stakes were unimaginable. He knew failure wasn't just personal. It could mean the loss of every ship in orbit, the deaths of countless civilians, and the Empire's vulnerability to enemies. He glanced down at Mara, clinging to his hand. Her eyes were wide but trusting. The tiny grip of her fingers reminded him why he could not fail. He moved through the corridors of the celestial dawn, the air thick with tension and ozone. Sparks danced from damaged consoles. The walls vibrated with the heartbeat of failing engines. Each step reminded him of the engineers who had tried before him, their faces pale with exhaustion and fear. They had all relied on protocols, schematics, and standard procedures. None had worked. Ethan knew he could not simply follow the rules. He had to think differently. The propulsion chamber stretched before him like a mechanical jungle. Pipes twisted in impossible angles, and glowing conduits hummed with unstable energy. The core pulsed with a sickly blue light, flickering as if it were alive but dying. Ethan's eyes scanned the room, taking in every detail. His mind raced. He felt a mix of fear, excitement, and determination. The ship was enormous, intimidating, but he felt something others did not: a connection. Machines, in a way, responded to humans who understood them. The first challenge hit quickly. A warning panel sparked violently, sending a shower of sparks near his feet. Instinctively, Ethan rolled away, feeling the heat graze his shoulder. He cursed under his breath and adjusted his toolkit, knowing one wrong move could destroy the fragile system entirely. The alarms grew louder. Somewhere deep in the hull, the AI's voice stammered in broken code. It was confused, malfunctioning from repeated tampering. Other engineers had ignored it, but Ethan listened carefully. The AI's fractured messages hinted at the core's instability, and in those fragments he could sense the problem's pattern. Time seemed to stretch. Hours passed as Ethan moved through the chamber, testing conduits, reconnecting circuits, and recalibrating sensors. Each attempt was a gamble. A small spark could mean a reset, or a total meltdown. Sweat ran down his face. His arms ached from holding tools in impossible positions. Yet he felt a fire inside, a human stubbornness that no machine, no protocol, no failure could extinguish. He remembered Mara watching from the observation deck, her small face pressed against the glass. He imagined her alone in the galaxy if he failed. That thought sharpened his focus. Fear was no longer his enemy, it became fuel. Every action he took was precise, calculated, but daring. He approached the core as if it were a living being, observing, listening, coaxing. Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the chamber. One of the conduits ruptured, releasing a surge of energy that sent sparks flying in all directions. Ethan dove behind a support beam, heart racing. The ship groaned under the stress. Alarms blared louder, echoing through the empty corridors. For a moment, it felt like the celestial dawn might never fly again. Every failure of the previous engineers pressed on him like a weight. The AI's voice crackled, "Core instability, critical." Ethan gritted his teeth and stood. He could not wait for instructions, could not rely on outdated methods. He needed to understand the problem at a deeper level, to see what others had missed. He touched the glowing conduits, feeling the subtle vibrations beneath his fingers. Patterns emerged in the hums. A rhythm. An anomaly in the resonance. It was something the engineers had overlooked. A spark of hope ignited in him. This was no ordinary failure. The ship's pulse was irregular but predictable. He smiled briefly, the tiniest edge of relief. He had found the key. Yet the challenge had only just begun. Harnessing it, fixing it, surviving it, those steps remained. Mara's wide eyes, the Empress's piercing gaze, the lives of countless others, they all depended on what he would do next. Ethan tightened his grip on his tools, took a deep breath, and whispered to himself, "Humans don't give up. Not ever." From the observation deck, Mara clutched the railing as the alarms continued to scream. Something was about to change. Ethan knew it. And whatever happened next, the ship, and the galaxy, would never forget a human father who refused to quit. Ethan stepped cautiously into the heart of the propulsion chamber. The room smelled of hot metal and ozone. Every surface glowed with unstable energy, and the hum of the core vibrated through the floor. Sparks leapt unpredictably from damaged conduits, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. The previous engineers had treated the system like a puzzle to force, replacing modules blindly, overriding safety protocols. None of it had worked. Ethan knew brute force would destroy the ship. He needed understanding. He knelt near a fractured energy conduit, tools in hand. The metal beneath his fingers vibrated, pulsing like the heartbeat of a living creature. He could feel patterns in the chaos, tiny fluctuations no one else had noticed. The AI stuttered fragments of words: resonance, unstable, overload imminent. Ethan studied the flickering display. The engineers had ignored the AI's warnings, assuming it was malfunctioning. But he had learned long ago that machines, no matter how alien, could be reasoned with. They responded to careful observation. A sudden jolt shook the chamber. Sparks shot from the core and a thick wave of heat washed over him. Ethan barely leapt back in time, his suit singed. The alarm screamed louder. Somewhere deep in the hull, metal groaned as if the ship itself were protesting. He swallowed hard and wiped sweat from his brow. Fear tightened his chest, but he forced himself to focus. Every second counted. Every misstep could trigger a cascade failure. He moved carefully through the chaos, connecting sensors, checking calibrations, adjusting conduits by hand. Each action demanded precision. One wrong move could overload the core, ending everything. His mind raced as he calculated energy flows, compensating for fluctuations in real time. He recalled Mara's face, anxious but trusting. The thought of her alone in the galaxy without him sharpened his resolve. Failure was not an option. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the crackle of sparks and the AI's fractured voice. Ethan noticed subtle irregularities in the energy pulse, a microfluctuation repeating in a pattern. His eyes narrowed. "This is it," he muttered, voice low. "This is what they missed." None of the previous engineers had looked at the system this way. They had treated it like code to break, not like a living organism to understand. Ethan's hands moved over the controls with instinctive speed. He rerouted power through auxiliary conduits, carefully balancing the load. The core pulsed violently, threatening to explode. Sparks sprayed dangerously close, but he remained steady. Every adjustment, every calculation was a gamble. Yet his human mind thrived on the impossible. Adaptation, creativity, and courage had always been humanity's greatest tools. A sudden explosion erupted near the main flux conduit. The force knocked him off his feet, sending tools skittering across the floor. Smoke filled the chamber. Ethan coughed, pushing himself up. His suit had taken damage, but he could still move. He glanced at the AI, which now repeated a single word with clarity: resonance. It was the key. The core's instability came from a misaligned resonance frequency in the alien alloy, a flaw no human, no matter how brilliant, had predicted. Ethan's pulse quickened. He grabbed spare components from his toolkit and began assembling a harmonic stabilizer, improvising from salvaged parts. He worked fast but carefully, welding and connecting delicate conduits while avoiding the deadly energy pulses. Every second felt like a lifetime. Sparks flew, metal groaned, and the AI murmured anxious warnings. Ethan ignored the fear pressing against his chest. Humans didn't give up. Humans adapted. Humans survived. The chamber shook violently again, and a massive energy surge roared through the core. Ethan dove behind a support beam just as molten plasma streaked past him. Pain seared his shoulder, but he ignored it, pushing forward. His creation, a crude yet ingenious modulator, was nearly complete. He could stabilize the resonance, but only if he activated it manually. No automated system could handle the precision required. He took a deep breath and positioned the modulator. Every connection had to be exact. A single misalignment could cause the reactor to detonate. His hands trembled, but his mind was sharp. Years of experience, intuition, and human determination guided him. He activated the device. The core convulsed violently. Lights flickered. Smoke poured from vents. And then, a sudden stillness. The hum of the celestial dawn shifted, steadying into a smooth, constant pulse. Ethan's heart raced. He had done it. The core, once on the brink of failure, now throbbed steadily, alive and stable. Relief washed over him, but there was no time to celebrate. The ship's systems were fragile. Every second that passed could reveal another flaw, another failure. Ethan rose slowly, eyes scanning the chamber, muscles tense, ready for whatever challenge would come next. Above him, on the observation deck, Mara clutched the railing, staring wide-eyed at her father's silhouette through the smoke-filled chamber. The alarms had quieted, but the tension remained. Ethan's voice came over the comms, steady but firm. "It's stable, for now. But I'm not done. Not yet." Somewhere deep in the ship, the AI's voice flickered, almost reverent. "Human, efficiency, remarkable." Ethan allowed himself a brief glance toward the observation deck. Mara's small face, full of awe and hope, reminded him why humans mattered in the galaxy. They didn't give up. They didn't quit. They could face impossible odds and survive. He tightened his grip on his tools and stepped forward toward the next challenge. The celestial dawn was alive again, but the journey to fully restore it, and prove human courage, was far from over. Sparks still flew, alarms still hummed, and the fate of the fleet still depended on him. He whispered under his breath, a quiet promise to his daughter and to the galaxy, "We finish this. No matter what." Ethan stepped deeper into the propulsion chamber, sweat dripping down his brow. The core pulsed unevenly, shadows flickering across twisted metal and exposed conduits. The air was thick with ozone, and the hum of the ship's heart sounded like a warning heartbeat. Sparks flew from a ruptured flux tube, sizzling against the floor. The last 28 engineers had panicked here, each attempt ending in failure. Ethan knew the ship wasn't just broken, it was alive in its own way, and it demanded respect, not brute force. He knelt by the fractured conduits, examining the patterns of energy surges. His eyes traced the faint blue lines in the alloy, noticing a subtle oscillation no one had seen before. The AI's voice stammered over the intercom, fragmented and anxious. "Core, resonance, critical." Ethan leaned closer. The rhythm wasn't random. It was a flaw buried deep in the alien design, something no one else had understood. A misalignment in the resonance. The idea hit him like a jolt. He had seen resonance problems in smaller ships before, but nothing like this. If he could stabilize it, the entire core could function. But the solution wasn't in standard engineering, it was in improvisation and human ingenuity. He reached into his toolkit, pulling spare components, wires and energy modulators scavenged from damaged circuits. He had to build a device to synchronize the ship's alien energy pulses manually. Every second was a gamble. Sparks erupted near his feet, and the walls vibrated with the pulse of the unstable core. One wrong move could overload the reactor and the chamber would become a tomb. Ethan's hands worked with steady precision. He cut, soldered, and connected with care, listening to the faint hum of the conduits, feeling the rhythm of the core. He could sense the tiny gaps, the places where the energy faltered. The first attempt failed. A burst of plasma shot across the room, scorching his arm. He stumbled back, heart pounding, but he did not stop. He gritted his teeth, wincing at the pain, and adjusted the modulator. Every failure was a lesson, every spark a warning. Humans survived by learning, by adapting faster than the environment around them. He whispered to himself, "We don't quit. We don't fail." Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the hiss of sparks and the groan of metal under stress. Ethan's arms ached, his suit was scorched, but his focus never wavered. He adjusted the device again, this time calibrating the resonance to a near-perfect match. The chamber shook violently as the core pulsed with renewed energy. Sparks flew dangerously close, but Ethan moved with confidence born of instinct and experience. Suddenly, a surge of energy ripped through the room. The modulator glowed brightly, humming with alien power. Ethan gritted his teeth, holding it steady as the core trembled violently. The AI's voice grew clear for a moment, almost reverent. "Stabilization. Possible?" Ethan knew he was close. One more adjustment, one more synchronization, and the ship might live. He twisted a final conduit, routing the energy through the makeshift stabilizer. The core shuddered, sparks exploding in every direction. For a moment, it seemed like failure was inevitable. Then, slowly, the pulses began to align. The hum became steady, the blue glow of the core bright but controlled. Ethan stepped back, breathing hard. He had done it. The resonance was synchronized. The core, once on the brink of collapse, was stable. He allowed himself a brief glance toward the observation deck. Mara's small hands pressed against the glass, eyes wide with awe and fear. She didn't fully understand what had happened, but she felt the shift. The danger had eased, even if only slightly. Ethan gave her a small, reassuring nod. He wasn't finished yet. Stabilizing the core was only the first step. The chamber still smelled of scorched metal and ozone, and some conduits were still unstable. Ethan checked each connection, running through every circuit, ensuring no hidden failures remained. The ship groaned around him, alive and restless. He knew the Empire's eyes were on him. The Empress had demanded a solution. Humanity was counting on him, not just to survive but to succeed where everyone else had failed. He paused for a moment, listening. The ship's hum was steadier now, but faint vibrations hinted at lingering weaknesses. He needed to bring the full system online, integrate the modulator, and manually override the automated safety protocols. The risk was extreme. One wrong move and the ship could explode. Yet fear did not dominate him. Humans faced impossible odds every day. Courage, intelligence, and determination were their weapons, and he wielded them now. Ethan adjusted the final calibrations. The core's pulse matched the frequency he had calculated. Sparks subsided, warning lights dimmed, and the chamber became almost eerily calm. He exhaled, feeling the weight of tension lifting slightly, but his mind raced ahead. The next step would be critical: powering up the main systems and testing propulsion. If the core faltered even slightly, the ship could die mid-flight, and so would everyone aboard. He turned to the console, hands shaking slightly but precise. His eyes scanned readouts, inputs, and energy flows, double-checking every calculation. Mara's small face appeared at the observation deck, and he felt a surge of emotion. Love, fear, hope, determination, all fused into one. The galaxy was waiting. The Empire's fleet was counting on him. And in this moment, a single human father carried the impossible burden of life and death. Ethan whispered under his breath, "This is just the beginning. We finish this or we fail together." The hum of the celestial dawn shifted again, steady but tense. Sparks flared one final time as if the ship tested him, waiting to see if humanity could match its fury. Ethan gripped his tools, eyes sharp, muscles ready. The real challenge had begun. Ethan took a deep breath as he stood before the main control console. The propulsion core hummed steadily, but the celestial dawn was far from safe. Every system was still fragile, every conduit a potential threat. One misstep now and the ship could tear itself apart. Sparks sizzled along the floor as if daring him to fail. He swallowed hard and glanced up at the observation deck, where Mara clung to the railing. Her small eyes were wide with fear and trust. Her presence reminded him why he couldn't fail. Not for the Empire, not for glory, but for her and for the lives that would depend on him. "Humans don't quit," he whispered to himself. The words steadied his hands and sharpened his mind. He had stabilized the core, identified the resonance flaw, and built a device no one else could conceive. Now came the moment to test it, to breathe life back into the ship. Ethan activated the main override, bypassing the automated protocols that had failed 28 engineers before him. Lights flickered as systems roared back to life, screens lighting with data streaming too fast to read. The core pulsed, each beat synchronized with the modulator he had crafted. The ship groaned under the sudden flow of energy, metal whining as if in pain, but Ethan's hands stayed firm, adjusting conduits and energy valves in real time. A surge of plasma exploded from the core, throwing him backward. Pain seared across his arm, but he didn't stop. His mind raced, calculating every energy pulse, every fluctuation. He rerouted power through auxiliary channels, realigned the harmonic modulator, and forced the resonance to stabilize. Sparks and smoke filled the room. The alarms screamed, warning of imminent catastrophe. Ethan's heart pounded. Every second mattered. Then came a new challenge, a sudden overload warning. The core's energy threatened to spike beyond containment. The emergency vent valves were jammed, twisted by previous attempts, and the automated systems were offline. Ethan's eyes scanned the chaotic readouts. No engineer before him had tried this. Most would have retreated, called for backup, or accepted failure. But Ethan was human. Humans didn't stop at the impossible, they adapted. He grabbed a plasma conduit, holding it in place as energy arced around it. Sparks danced dangerously close to his suit. With one swift motion he connected it to the stabilizer. The ship shook violently, metal groaning as if testing his courage. Ethan's muscles burned, sweat stinging his eyes, but he refused to move. He was the final safeguard. Failure was no longer an option. Minutes stretched like hours. The core pulsed, convulsed, then gradually calmed. The alarms faded, the sparks died down, and the hum of the celestial dawn shifted into a smooth, steady rhythm. Ethan exhaled, exhaustion and relief washing over him. The ship, once on the brink of destruction, was alive. The impossible had become reality. He moved to the control deck, helping Mara down from her observation perch. Her small hand gripped his, trembling yet filled with awe. You did it, Dad," she whispered. Ethan smiled, ruffling her hair despite the burns on his suit. He knew the danger wasn't fully gone. The systems were still delicate, but the core had held. The ship could fly. The fleet could survive. From orbit, the Empress watched the screens. Her expression shifted from skepticism to astonishment, then respect. "Human Kale," she said, her voice carrying across the comms. "You have done what 28 of my finest could not. You have proven that human courage and ingenuity are unmatched." Ethan allowed himself a brief nod, exhaustion giving way to a quiet pride. This wasn't about recognition. It was about proving that humanity could rise when everything seemed lost. He guided the celestial dawn to a test trajectory. The engines rumbled to life, the ship shaking as it pushed against Lyra vs gravity. Ethan monitored every system, manually adjusting energy flows to prevent fluctuations. Sparks and alarms were no longer threats. They were indicators he could read, interpret, and correct. Humans, after all, had an edge that no algorithm could replicate: intuition, creativity, and courage under pressure. Suddenly, an unexpected surge hit the auxiliary power grid. Another crisis flashed before him. A misfire in the vent conduits could rip the ship apart mid-flight. The AI stuttered, core stability compromised. Ethan's pulse quickened. He didn't panic. He didn't hesitate. He moved faster than the automated systems could respond, reconnecting the conduit manually, rerouting energy in a precise sequence. Sparks flew around him, heat searing his suit. The ship groaned as if it resisted him, testing his resolve. Then, with a final adjustment, the hum of the celestial dawn steadied completely. The glow of the core was steady, clean, controlled. Ethan leaned against the console, chest heaving, muscles trembling, but eyes alive with triumph. He had done it. A human had succeeded where 28 engineers failed. One father had saved an empire's flagship and proved the unstoppable potential of humanity. Mara ran to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "I knew you could do it," she whispered, tears in her eyes. Ethan hugged her back, feeling the weight of exhaustion and relief mix with pride and love. Humanity had risen in the face of impossible odds, and he had led the way. The Empress's voice came over the comms again, softer this time, almost reflective. "Human Kale, your actions will be remembered. The Empire owes you more than words can express. Today you have reminded us all that humans are extraordinary." Ethan nodded silently. Recognition was meaningless compared to survival, courage, and the proof that humans could face what no one else dared. The celestial dawn now hovered steady above Lyra V. The alarms were silent. The sparks were gone. The core thrummed calmly, alive under Ethan's careful hands. The impossible had been conquered, not by machines, not by algorithms, but by human ingenuity, courage, and determination. Ethan glanced down at Mara, smiled, and whispered, "We did it. Humans always find a way." The galaxy would remember this moment. One human father, facing impossible odds, had saved a ship, a fleet, and perhaps the future of humanity itself. And for the first time in days, Ethan allowed himself to feel something he hadn't in a long time: hope. The celestial dawn floated above Lyra V, engines humming steadily, a living testament to human determination. Ethan Kale leaned against the control console, muscles stiff, suit scorched, but his eyes burned with quiet pride. He watched the sensors. The core remained stable, energy flows balanced, the ship ready to move. For hours, he had danced with disaster, balancing alien technology against human ingenuity, and he had won. Yet victory was never just about survival, it was about what humanity could show the galaxy. Mara ran up, her small face flushed with excitement and relief. "Dad, we did it!" she shouted, her voice breaking the tense silence that had dominated the ship for so long. Ethan smiled, ruffling her hair and pulling her close. She clutched his arm, trembling from both fear and awe. He could feel her heart racing against his chest. She had witnessed him risk everything, and in her eyes he saw the spark of understanding. Courage, intelligence, and love could overcome the impossible. Above them, the Empress's flagship hovered, her golden robes catching the light of Lyravia's distant sun. Her stern features softened as she studied the celestial dawn through the observation screens. The entire fleet had held its breath, watching the impossible unfold. 28 engineers had failed. One human had succeeded. Ethan's presence had proven what the Empire had long suspected but rarely acknowledged: humans were extraordinary. A voice crackled over the comms, steady now, calm. "Human Kale, you have done what no one else could. The Empire owes you a debt beyond words. Today humanity has reminded us all of its power. Ethan allowed himself a small nod. He did not seek praise. He sought proof that humans could rise when faced with impossible odds. And now the galaxy would see it. He turned back to the ship's console, running final diagnostics. Every system was functioning perfectly. The harmonic stabilizer he had built still hummed softly, integrated seamlessly with the core. The AI, once fragmented and desperate, now operated smoothly. Its voice carried a hint of admiration, even respect. Efficiency, remarkable, human ingenuity confirmed. Ethan couldn't help but grin. Machines did not flatter. Acknowledgement from a living AI meant recognition on a level deeper than politics or protocol. Yet there was more to do. The ship's engines needed testing under full power, the propulsion core pushed beyond the simulation ranges. Ethan guided Mara to a secure observation point, strapping her into the safety harness. She looked at him with wide, trusting eyes, and he gave her a firm nod. "Watch closely. Humans always find a way," he said. He activated the engines, forcing the celestial dawn into motion. The ship shuddered at first, struggling against gravity, but the core pulsed with strength, energy flowing evenly through every conduit. Sparks no longer erupted, alarms had faded. The hum of the ship became steady, confident, alive. Mara cheered, her small voice carrying hope across the otherwise silent chamber. Ethan allowed himself a moment of relief. The impossible had been conquered. From orbit, the Empress descended in her flagship, observing the human father and daughter aboard the Celestial Dawn. For the first time in decades she allowed herself a smile. "Human Kale," she said over the comms, "you have not only repaired my ship, but you have proven what humanity is capable of. Courage, ingenuity, dedication. Today the Empire has learned that humans can accomplish the impossible." Ethan's lips curved into a faint smile. Words were not needed, his actions had already spoken. The fleet moved around them, warships adjusting formations, scanning for threats. Ethan realized that this moment, more than any battle, would define the future. The Empire now understood that humans were more than workers, soldiers, or cogs in a vast machine. They were thinkers, problem solvers, survivors. One human had shifted the perspective of an entire civilization. Ethan guided the ship toward a safe orbit, monitoring every system with careful precision. The celestial dawn gleamed under the light of Lyravia's twin suns, fully restored, fully alive. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction, not pride, not arrogance, but a human certainty that courage and intelligence had triumphed. He had faced impossible odds and refused to quit. Humanity had proven its worth. Mara leaned against him, eyes wide with wonder. "Will they remember?" she asked softly. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "They will," he said. "Humans always leave a mark. Not because we want praise, but because we refuse to fail when it matters most." Her small smile reflected hope, and for a moment, Ethan allowed himself to feel the weight of their achievement. The AI spoke again, its voice calm and precise. "Human Kale, all systems stable. Mission parameters satisfied. Human intervention prevented total failure." Ethan nodded silently, letting the words sink in. He had done more than fix a ship. He had proven that humans, even a single human, could face the impossible, think beyond convention, and succeed where others failed. The Empress's final message arrived, simple but lasting: "Your actions today will be remembered for generations. Humanity is extraordinary, and you have reminded us all why." Ethan exhaled, fatigue hitting him for the first time. The tension, fear, and uncertainty of the last days finally gave way to a quiet, hard-earned relief. He looked at Mara, then back at the humming, alive ship. "We did it," he whispered. "We proved that humans can overcome anything." Her small hand squeezed his, and together they watched the celestial dawn drift silently above the planet, ready to face whatever challenges the galaxy might throw next. And in that moment, one human father, against impossible odds, had not only saved a ship and a fleet but had reminded the galaxy that courage, intelligence, and determination were not bound by species, rank, or expectation. Humanity had shined, and their light would not be forgotten.